Hi, I'm Diamond.
And I'm Malcolm.
And we're just a couple of true crime and paranormal fanatics here to share some stories. Like many of you, we've spent quarantine,
and most of our lives prior,
watching documentaries of serial killers and keeping up with all the paranormal investigators.
Our podcast, Killers, Cryptids, and Hauntings, dives into the stories that grip us the most.
Whether it's due to the backstory,
the legends surrounding,
or the sheer gore of it all,
we're here to deliver.
So lock your doors, grab a bottle of wine, and let's get creepy.
Hey guys, as we dive into all things unusual, it's important to note the significance of spirituality.
And how your alignment can dictate your destiny.
One tool used for centuries is the tarot deck.
We'll be starting every episode with a single card reading from the Rider deck in a little segment we like to call Ride or Die.
Today's card is the Hermit. Some of our key words here are soul searching, introspection, being alone, and inner guidance. The Hermit shows that you are taking a break from everyday life to draw your energy and attention inward and find the answers you seek deep within your soul. You realize that your most profound sense of truth and knowledge is within yourself and not in the distractions of the outside world. The Hermit invites you to retreat into your private world and experience a deep sense of seclusion and introspection. You know that you need to take this journey alone or with a small, intimate group of spiritually minded people. When you allow yourself to tune into your inner guiding light, you will hear the answers you need and grow wise beyond your years. The Hermit often appears when you are at a pivotal point in your life and considering a new direction. Through meditation, contemplation, and self-examination, you may begin to reevaluate your personal goals and change your overall course.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty crazy that card was picked, because I've actually been having a really introspective week myself, just on the side of everything. I've been doing a lot of reevaluation on myself.
Myself as well, on what I need and what I deserve and what I need right now in my current moment.
Wow. All right, this one kind of hit the nail on the head.
Absolutely. Finally, the Hermit may appear in your life as a spiritual mentor, here to raise your vibration and enhance your consciousness. The beauty of this mentor is that, while he may not be an expert in his own right, he will teach you how to find your answers within you.
Yup.
Yup, that sure is a tarot reading, huh?
Oh, man. Yeah, no, this has definitely been a huge week of, a huge year of introspection for myself.
Absolutely. I think everyone's had a lot of time to be kind of on their own and to kind of sit with that introspection and that, what does it mean to be myself? What do I need? What do I want from this world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Introspection is a really important thing to have.
Absolutely.
To have that kind of alone time with yourself or with someone really close to you, it's very important to have that.
I agree. A lot of people only have those select few that they let into their inner circle, and those people often are the ones that help us through the hardest journeys that we have.
Now, in my opinion, I think in most problems that you have, if you have a period of introspection, you can usually find the solution to that problem.
Or at least some solace.
Mm-hmm. Some rationale. Although I think introspection can be the solution to a lot of problems, it doesn't necessarily work for everyone.
What do you mean by that?
For instance, the ladies that I'm talking about today, they had a lot of time for introspection, but they didn't use it wisely because they let their own problems fester and infest them until they snapped. And those ladies are the Papin Sisters.
The Papin Sisters?
Mm-hmm. So this story takes place in France in the early 1900s. A little bit about that time period. Obviously, there's no HR or OSHA.
Oh, you don't say.
No. In fact, the only law in place for working conditions was a mandated 12 days paid vacation per year for the right to strike and unionize. Obviously, we are about to enter World War I and II. However, that doesn't really affect the story, but it's worth mentioning. Another mentionable thing is that there is a huge lack of women's rights. Women's suffrage did not happen in France until 1944, and the bulk of our story takes place in 1931. And this is just one of those classic working class versus aristocrat stories. A classic stick it to the man stories. Now, there are a lot of stick it to the man stories that we are familiar of. A very common one that everyone usually goes to is Robin Hood. Malcolm, what are some of your favorite stick it to the man stories?
In modern media, one of my favorite stories would probably be the newest Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix, yes.
Fun fact, Diamond cannot say Joaquin without very heavily thinking about it.
Also, very important fact to that fun fact is I've only ever seen it written. And it's not obvious that it's Joaquin and not Jacquin.
But the newest Joker with Joaquin Phoenix would probably be one of my favorite sticking it to the man stories. Mainly for the fact of this is a broken man with a medical condition who has been hurt and betrayed and beaten down by society and really rises up, snaps back with vicious force, and leads a almost revolution throughout Gotham City.
That's incredible. You know, I still haven't seen that movie yet. I gotta see it.
Absolutely recommend it. Can't recommend it enough.
Now, the movie I thought you were going to say, which is one of my favorite Stick It to the Man movies, is V for Vendetta.
Oh, what a classic.
A classic. Now, V for Vendetta is my favorite Stick It to the Man movie, but this, what I'm about to get into, is my favorite Stick It to the Man story. So let's get into it.
So let's get started.
Now, I do want to say, real quick, I am not French. I apologize profusely for any and all pronunciation. With that said, in the year 1901, in Le Mans, France, Clémence Derry and Gustave Papin start dating.
Cute.
Gustave Papin suspects Clémence of having an affair with her boss.
Oh, cute.
And she gets pregnant.
Fantastic. Oh, what a beautiful start.
It gets better. Now, being the classy man that he is, Gustave marries her in October of that year. Then they have their first daughter, Amelia Papin. Gustave, of course, is still suspicious and finds a job out of town and tries to move the family. Clémence says, in her very level-headed way, I would rather kill myself than leave Le Mans.
I have never felt that way about anywhere ever in my life.
Yeah, I've felt that. I felt the opposite way of somewhere. Yeah. Like, I need to get out of here.
Or I will kill myself, but, you know.
So, safe to say the marriage wasn't great.
No.
Gustave, to cope with everything, started drinking very heavily, but they stayed together.
What a miracle for the child.
Well, let's get into that. So, in 1911, when Amelia was about 10, she was sent to live at the Bon Pasture Catholic Orphanage.
Oh.
It was then discovered there that Gustave had raped her.
Oh.
She later in her life joined a convent and became a nun. That's Amelia. That's the end of Amelia for us. She's not that important to the story. Flashback a little bit to 1905, March 8th specifically, their second daughter, Christine, was born. Her parents had much bigger things to worry about than a second kid, so she was immediately sent to live with Gustave's sister and husband. She was never very well behaved, but she was described as being very smart and stubborn. Because of her behavior, about 7 years later, she was sent to the same Catholic orphanage that her older sister was in. 1911, September 15th, Leah Papin was born. Again, parents had bigger fish to fry. She was immediately given to Clémence's brother, who died very shortly after taking her in, and she was also sent to the Catholic orphanage. So it's 1912. All girls are in the orphanage. We're not paying attention to Amelia. She's not the star of the story here. We have Leah, who is about 1 year old, and Christine, who is 7, in the orphanage. Christine and Leah pretty much hung out the entire time that they were in the orphanage. They really latched onto each other like sisters normally would, but a little more than sisters normally would. Leah, as she got older, was described as very introverted and not that smart. Christine, after spending some time in the orphanage, received a calling to become a nun, very much like her older sister.
Okay.
However, Clémence forbade this and sent her to work instead.
Wait, Clémence, who had given
her up to the orphanage, yes.
But you gave your daughters up. How you don't get a say in what they want to do anymore?
That's what you would think, right? But apparently, in early 1900s France, that was not the case.
All right.
Leah was also sent to work with Christine when she was 15. In 1926, the two girls were hired together as live-in maids for the Lancelin family. A little bit about them. We have Renee Lancelin, who is the man of the house and a retired lawyer. We have Leonie Lancelin, who is the lady of the house, back when that's all you had to be. And they also have living with them their adult daughter, who had not yet married, Genevieve. Now, the neighbors perceived the maids to be very quiet and obedient. They rarely spoke unless they were speaking to each other. They attended church every Sunday, and any free time that they had, they spent together in their room, which was essentially an attic with a bed and a window.
But they sound like perfect live-in mates, well-behaved, well-kept.
Yeah, you would think. Lady Lancelin did not agree. She was very strict and very high demanding of the girls. She did that classic white glove check, and when she found dust, she made Leah redo the whole house. Now,
wait,
guys, this is before Swiffer, so...
The whole house?
The whole house, and this is an aristocratic French house in the 1930s. This is a big house. They got lots of dust-attracting things. Think of all the armoires.
What a word.
On top of that, she constantly criticized Christine's cooking and the pièce de résistance.
I see you throwing in that French vocabulary. You did learn something from this.
She persistently treated the maids like furniture.
Like furniture?
Like furniture.
As in, like, objects? Or, like, she used them as a footstool? Or...
She probably did use them as a footstool. I'm thinking she did not regard them as human beings.
Saw them as objects, as property.
As property, yeah.
Wow. But they were live-in maids.
They were live-in maids.
They weren't in servitude. They were just...
Yeah, they were live-in maids that earned wages, that had 12 mandated vacation days. They were people. They were not slaves.
She just saw them as such.
Which is great for a work
environment. Very
environment.
Problematic, especially for two young girls who've already had such a hard time growing up.
Mm-hmm. But it got worse. So Lady Lancelin fell into a depression, and because of that, she took it out on the maids.
Well, of course.
There were multiple accounts of her slapping the maids or slamming their heads into the walls and or furniture.
Wow. That's violent.
Yeah, it was. Now the exciting part. On the night of February 2nd, 1933, Renee Lancelin invites Leonie and Genevieve out to dinner at a friend's house. They were very late. In fact, they didn't show up at all, and Renee went home to fetch the girls. The door was locked, and all of the lights were off except for the maid's room up at the top. He thought something was a little weird, so he was like, I'm going to call the police, because
that makes sense.
The vibes are off. So the police were called, they break into the house, and they stumble on a scene that they can only describe as a blood orgy.
Oh my god, where was my invite?
Lost in the mail, I guess, International Postal Service, isn't it?
Oh, goodness gracious. A blood orgy.
A blood orgy.
What does that mean?
So, Genevieve and Leonie were found on the bottom of the staircase with their dresses pulled over their heads to show their legs and genitals. Stab wounds were found on their butts, their calves, their stomachs, and chest. On each of their inner thighs was a little baker's X carved into them, like you would see on the tops of loaves of bread. There was no evidence of traditional sexual assault. However, it was definitely sexually aggressive.
Absolutely. To expose a woman like that, especially in such a weak moment, shows some serious premeditated hatred.
Oh, not to mention, all of this stuff happened post-mortem.
Oh!
So after these women were already dead, they pulled up their skirts and just carved them up.
Wow, really just a final kind of F-you.
Yeah. So after the police stumbled upon this scene, because of the time that they were in and the preservation of the crime scene wasn't that important because DNA hadn't really been discovered in a useful way yet, the police pulled down their skirts to take the crime scene photo. Once they did that, they revealed their faces to be bludgeoned beyond recognition.
Wow, that's some serious hatred.
Oh yeah. Their eyes were also gouged out and found within the folds of their scarves. Well, not all 4 eyes, just 3 of them. One of the eyes was on the stair, and when Genevieve's skirt was pulled down, it rolled toward the officer.
Oh my goodness, could you imagine being that officer?
Just walking into work, not knowing what's going to happen, and then an eye rolls at you?
Oh my, I would quit on the spot.
I don't know. I don't know if these police officers kept their jobs after. I mean, I would have retired, early retirement for sure. In addition to that, Leonie's mouth was removed and her teeth were pounded in.
Oh.
Just removed. Like Thanos removed. The blood around them was splattered as high as 7 feet as well. Now, the police, they're thinking the maids are going to be in the same exact condition.
Oh, absolutely.
So they haul ass up the stairs to the maids' quarters, and they found the bedroom door. It was closed but not locked, and they opened it only to find the girls laying naked together in a single bed, having freshly bathed. Next to them, on a chair, was a hammer covered in hair and blood.
Huh. So, did the maids do it?
I'm not sure. But no, the maids, they got up, they immediately confessed with zero remorse. Totally robotic, like, oh, yeah, I did that. Sorry about the mouse.
Wow. That is a very, we thought and acted without consequence, and now we know what we did, and this is what we did, and alright, let's go from there.
The trial commenced in September of 1933, 7 months later. Typical. This trial attracted tons of attention because nobody thought that these 2 frail, small-framed, mild-tempered girls could commit such brutal acts.
Well, especially with the fact that the neighbors all said that they were quiet, well-behaved. They were seen and not heard, which is exactly what you want from maids. They cooked and cleaned. They did everything that they were supposed to. It makes sense. I wouldn't suspect them of doing anything this heinous.
Exactly, and not a lot of people did. And this trial gained so much traction that it was headlining newspapers in the U.S.
Wow, that says something. U.S. is usually very self-absorbed.
Yeah, I mean, when's the last time that you heard of a French homicide? Yeah, that's about it, right? Now, in her confession, Christine said that an argument started between Leonie and herself over a broken iron. Fed up with her and all her bullshit, Christine whacked Leonie on the head with said iron. Wow. Now, this is a 1930s steam iron.
It's a cast iron. It
is a slab of metal. 15-20 pounds of heated metal. Just
wow.
Smack. And as soon as Christine hit Leonie with the iron, as if almost on cue, Leia responded by pouncing on Genevieve.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It was almost as if all of Christine's unbridled rage was released through herself and Leia at the same time onto the ladies of the house.
Wow, that is such a deep connection between two sisters. For you to instantaneously respond unwarranted and jump into action like that.
Mm-hmm. And in the midst of all of this fighting, Christine yelled to Leia, "Tear her eyes out." Leia then proceeded to take her bare hands, reach into Genevieve's skull, and rip her eyes out of their sockets.
That takes some kind of unbridled rage and force.
So, especially given that this isn't Leia's rage. It's Christine's. I mean, I'm sure Leia wasn't happy with her situation, but it was mostly Christine's anger. Leia was more passive.
Yeah.
Than
Christine
anything.
is more the person to jump to action. Mm-hmm. Leia is more the person to just accept that this is her fate.
And she was like, "Oh, okay, I hear you," and then sticks her fingers into another person's eye socket. Now, I wear glasses because I can't do the whole contacts thing, putting that into my eye, all that. So I could not imagine just...
Well, that's your own eye, too. Your brain tells you not to.
Yeah. I don't know. I think my brain would also, in that moment, tell me not to, like, rip your eye out. Who knows, though. After ripping their eyes out, Christine said that she ran into the kitchen for weapons and came back with knives and a hammer. She gave the hammer to Leia, and they just pounded the shit out of their faces.
Wow.
Christine had the iron, so she was set. And Leia was just hammering away. They dragged them to the staircases, carved them up real good. Then they went upstairs, bathed each other, and just waited for the police to arrive.
That's insane.
It is wild. It is wild. This case shook the nation, because France hadn't seen a case like this before. And medical testimony defined the pair as a perfect example of abusive codependency. Christine was overwhelmingly dominant as well as cunning. Leia, however, was so submissive that her personality seemed to completely disappear into Christine's.
Well, I mean, that makes sense of victims of trauma as they were.
Mm-hmm.
And to grow up side by side to have that childhood trauma, it makes a lot of sense. Christine was the smarter, wiser of the two. She had the brains behind her and the ability to say, "Hey, follow me. When I say jump, you jump and you'll be safe." There was that protective nature almost. It makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And because of that medical testimony, Christine, of course, was sentenced much more harshly than Leia. She was sentenced to death, while Leia was sentenced to only 10 years in prison. Of course, her death sentence was soon overturned to a life in prison, which often happened with women in that time period because women were too frail to go hang.
To sentence a woman to death was seen as a very, very harsh punishment.
Although she...
Not undeserving, but harsh.
I don't know. I feel like anyone who rips anyone's eyes out should be put to death. Like, wow. She didn't even use, like, one of those, like, little spoons.
Melon baller.
She didn't even use a melon baller. I don't know if they even had them.
They definitely did not.
I don't know. I wasn't there, so. Since they were more of a danger together than they were by themselves, they were, of course, kept in separate prisons. And that did not bode very well with Christine. After months of her bellowing and whining and begging, they allowed one communal visit between the two. It's important to note here that Leia was not so much affected by this visit as Christine was. Her actions were reactionary to Christine's instigative actions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In this visit, there was an immense amount of inappropriate touching as well as professions of love between cries. They were both doing it, but it was mostly Christine, of course. And there's also rumor, speculation, that there may have been a kiss between them. Now, after the visit, Christine's mental and physical health declined rapidly. She started showing signs of acute madness as well as an intense longing for her sister. She became severely depressed and refused to eat entirely. At that point, she was moved to a mental facility. She then shortly died of cachexia, or wasting away, in May 18th of 1937. But she lost all will to eat, to drink, to sleep.
She lost her second half.
To live. You know, she became so upset from the loss of her sister that she refused to leave. It was like Clement's leaving Le Mans.
She refused to live anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Leia's imprisonment, however, was much less dramatic. She, of course, longed for her sister and longed for that connection for a while, but soon grew out of it. She behaved very well, and she was granted early release in 1941, which is 2 years earlier than she would have been released with the 10-year sentence. It was said that she lived with her mom in Nantes and worked under a false name. It was then believed that she died of natural causes in 1982. However, it is possible that she didn't actually die until 2001.
Oh.
So, a documentor, Claude Ventura, may have found her in a hospice facility in 2000.
What does that mean, may have found her?
Because the woman that he found was found paralyzed and mute.
Oh, so no possible way for her to communicate that with him.
To confirm nor deny. So there's debate over when she died, but most people believe that she died in 2001 in that French hospice facility. So I love this case. Mostly because of the gouged out eyes. You know how much I love gory stuff. If it ain't gore, it's a bore, you know. That was so cheesy. But this is also a really important case because for two reasons. One, it's one of the earliest cases where psychologists weren't diagnosing women with hysteria.
They were diagnosing them with something real.
With actual diseases. And not just, you're a little upset.
Your lady time is showing.
The other really important thing to take away from this is that it opened a lot of eyes and started a lot of conversations for the treatment of employees in a working place.
Good. That's really important. A lot of how people are in their day-to-day is dictated by where they work and how they're treated at work. If you're not feeling fulfilled at work, that leaks into every part of your life.
Yeah, and you want to hear something kind of upsetting? With full-time jobs, we spend more time at work than we do at home.
Yep.
And that's a tough pill to swallow.
And most of the time at home that you spend is going to be asleep.
Yeah. Well, I really like my mattress, so I'm not upset about that. Paid good money for that. But yeah, no, that's absolutely true. So it's really important that you have a really healthy work environment, and this was one of the first cases, at least in France, that really kind of drove that home. That people were like, maybe it shouldn't have been as bad as it was.
Yeah,
while they were working.
To forget about their childhood and growing up and their past life and everything. Just their work experience alone, to be beaten by your boss. They were not slaves. They were not indentured servants or anything. They were employed women by this household to then be beaten and belittled and mocked in such a fashion.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense.
An absolute disregard for their humanity. And that was, like, the best case scenario.
Yeah, it makes sense that eventually they were left to snap.
Mm-hmm. For sure, definitely.
You know, it also goes to show a lot of how your family situation can really mess you up.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, they didn't have a really great home life as kids.
No, not at all. It just goes to show that not everyone should be a parent.
No.
Yeah, I know myself for a fact I absolutely do not want to ever have kids.
Yeah, no. That's a good choice.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hate kids. Hate's kind of a strong word. I don't hate children. I just know for a fact that they're not for me.
I agree.
Kids are also ungodly creepy.
Yes.
Kids have this way of talking to you and looking into your soul, and they'll say just the darndest things where their perception of reality isn't quite there. So they'll say, yeah, my imaginary friend was here. And you'll be like, oh, your imaginary friend, how cute. And then they'll show you this drawing of a demon that's hanging out with them.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
And look at how many horror movies are centered around creepy kids.
Mm-hmm.
With all that being said, black-eyed children are something straight out of my nightmares.
Are they? They're not going to be like the Black-Eyed Peas, right?
They are not going to be like the Black-Eyed Peas. I am terribly sorry.
That's a shame. I really love the Black-Eyed Peas.
Now, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to picture this. You're home alone. It's the middle of the night. It's been raining and storming for hours. Maybe you're sitting on the couch enjoying some TV. Maybe you're laying in bed trying to get comfortable and finally fall asleep. When you hear the doorbell ring. You get up to answer your door, stopping to look through the peephole first. A small boy is standing there with his head down. He looks thin and frail, maybe sick, definitely lost. You crack open the door a little bit. The boy does not pick up his head, but he asks, I can't find my mommy. I need help. Can I come in? Before you even have time to think, you feel a dark, ominous presence engulfing you, guiding your hand to open the door wider and wider for the boy. Before you even realize you're letting the boy in, he's walking up to you, looking into your face with soulless, pitch-black eyes, and you are never seen or heard from again.
I don't like that.
So that, my dear, is basically nightmare fuel.
Yeah?
That is pretty much what happens to every victim of this paranormal creature known as the Black-Eyed Children. So Black-Eyed Children are a paranormal phenomena. It is believed that these children may actually be a paranormal creature taking the form of a human child. Which we haven't gotten to talk about a lot, but it's actually quite common for demonic entities to take the form of children.
Yes, it is. Ugh, I hate demons.
It's specifically targeting your need to care for your own species, targeting your need to care for babies and for your own that are younger than you. Those maternal and paternal instincts start to take control. They start to kick in. Look at ghost children. How many things could have possibly happened to a child to have them holding on to the earth? Why are demonic children one of the most common things that we see or hear about, whether in the media, day-to-day lives, or story encounters? It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we so afraid of demonic children specifically when it comes to the paranormal? So these black-eyed children kind of play into that fear, that knowledge of, you know, a human being is going to try and take care of its younger species. That being said, they usually will never appear older than 14 or 15. have pale skin, and the telltale sign is their black eyes, or even a void where their eyes should be.
Oh, don't like that.
Encounters from these children range only slightly. Most commonly, these creatures approach as hitchhikers, panhandlers, or even knocking on your door. Some accounts of black-eyed children even report them appearing to people in their dreams. The creature will disguise itself as a family member or a relative, asking for help in some way.
Now, that's a little unfair, you know? Like, they could be, okay, sure, they're physical beings, they'll come up to you, you'll look in their eyes, and you'll disappear forever, but in your dreams, man...
That's some unfair...
That's some Freddy Krueger shit!
That is an unfair advantage in this.
Right. Get out of my subconscious with that.
So it gets even better. If you turn down one of these children, if you say no to helping them, they're gonna get violent. They start to ask again, and they'll grow more and more persistent and aggressive and desperate. They'll beg and plead before slowly growing harsher and harsher in how they ask. And before you know it, they start to unwillingly take control over your body and your actions. This dark, desperate feeling will take over you, and you won't be aware of what you're doing as you're letting them in, as you're opening the door for them, as you're reaching out to take their hand, and that's when they strike.
I'll tell you now, I'd much rather the black-eyed peas.
Well, of course. The story of black-eyed children, though, isn't necessarily a new one. The story of black-eyed children received some popularity in the 1990s, with tabloid coverage stating these encounters can date as far back as the 1980s. However, they seem to be having a resurgence in rural areas today. Black-eyed children also received some popularity online due to Creepypasta. I'm sure throughout the series of the show we're going to talk about Creepypasta a lot. Creepypasta, for those who may not know, is basically a collection of campfire stories. Almost like a Goosebumps book, but a lot darker. People online will often post their experiences with black-eyed children. One such encounter posted by Reddit user/Scary Stories 1991 goes as such. I have a story. This one may take a while to read, so sit back and enjoy. I was with my boyfriend a couple of months back, relaxing and enjoying our time together as most couples do. As the day progresses, we got tired, and so we took a nap. I woke up to my boyfriend freaking out, and I got startled by it. He brings me to the door, and I look outside. I see a young boy and young girl, roughly about the age of 10 and 11. They were pale, with dirty blonde hair, and they seemed like they were siblings. The little boy's hair was long enough to cover up his eyes. The girl's hair was about shoulder length, and she had bangs. They looked at the ground and spoke. "We are lost. May we please come in?" My sensitive ass lets them in, and right as they spoke, I could tell something was up. They had a sad, lonely tone in their voice, so I let them in. Right when they stepped foot in my house, I felt doomed. I had a weird gut feeling about this I just can't explain. Then I saw their eyes, as black as night, and they looked me in my eye, and I felt taken over. My boyfriend noticed too, and grabbed me as soon as he could. The kids ran upstairs in my house, and my parents weren't home, so we didn't know what to do. All I could hear from up there was the most ruckus I've ever heard. I heard picture frames falling and everything. We decided to stay in the house and hide it out, but it lasted all night. By the morning, the kids were gone. We still have no idea where they went, but now we know to never open the door to young kids.
So, I mean, I can see a common mistake with all of these encounters is opening the door in the first place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If I hear the doorbell ring at any time, I'm not answering it unless I had an order coming.
Yeah, that's the only time. If you're not door dashing or Grubhubbing or food delivery servicing, there is no reason for your doorbell to be ringing.
Not to mention, some cases of the black-eyed children will occur as you're driving alone down a country road, and they'll be standing in the middle of the road seeking attention.
Hell no, I'm running that kid over. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
That's
how can you stop?
I'll take the 5 points. I'm running that kid over.
How do you see that and stop what you're doing? How do you see that? Stop your car and go, "Hey kid, what's going on?" As they're standing there, head down in the middle of the road, not moving.
I'll try to swerve, but that's about it.
So what do you think, Diamond?
Well, the validity of her story, at least, is if you disappear after having looked into these things' eyes, why are we hearing stories about it?
Well, it could be possible because her boyfriend was there. Her boyfriend didn't look them in the eyes. He pulled her away.
Yeah.
It could be possible that he helped keep her in the physical current world as we know it. You know, a lot of these encounters occur alone.
That's true. I guess that's a valid point. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's elements that are believable, but I think maybe she might have embellished a few details.
Well, of course. I mean, isn't that all that an urban legend is embellishing tales over time?
Yeah, definitely.
And especially these are themes and traits that we see common in ghost stories or demonic children like that. It is very possible that, you know, it could be a very active area in which the black-eyed children are most commonly seen, where it could be a few entities of demonic creatures or demonic children that are floating around causing trouble, and it's just kind of a hearsay as the stories are told along. So what do you guys think? Believable or not? We would love to hear your theories and inputs. Have you ever seen a black-eyed child? Do you have any paranormal stories or anything that we should check out? Please feel free to contact us at kchpodcast.submissions@gmail.com. And also please feel free to check out all of our social media for live up-to-date posts and information. Twitter at kchpodcast, Instagram at Killers, Cryptids, and Hauntings. And don't forget to check out our website, kchpodcast.com. We will be posting photos from tonight's episode as well as any future episodes.
And tune in every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for new episodes.